Nobody told your mum how to keep a British home together in the 1970s. There was no little book that explained the rent, the gas meter, the school shoes, the washing line, the Sunday roast, the neighbours, the purse, the husband, the children, and the brown wage packet that came through the door on a Friday night. But she knew. She knew which bill could wait a few days and which one could not. She knew how much was left in the purse without tipping it out on the table. She knew when the bread was too stale for sandwiches, but still good enough for pudding. She knew when your dad was worried before he had even taken his coat off. She knew which child was truly ill and which one had simply remembered there was maths that morning. None of it was explained. In most homes, it was just expected. If you grew up in a British house in the 1970s, you probably saw these rules every day without knowing they were rules at all. You saw your mum moving through the kitchen, checking the purse, watching the clock, listening to the weather, keeping half an eye on the children and the other half on the week ahead. At the time, it looked ordinary. Years later, it looks like something else. The Friday wage packet came home in a small brown envelope. Dad may have earned it, but in many homes, Mum managed it. He came in from work, put the envelope on the kitchen table, or handed it over before he had even settled properly. From that moment, the week was in her hands. She opened it carefully, counted the notes, moved the coins into little piles, and already knew where everything had to go. The rent had to be covered. The gas and electric had to be watched. Food had to be bought. School dinners had to be paid. Bus fares had to be found. Dad might need a few pounds for the pub, his cigarettes, or the pools. If there was enough, the house breathed a little easier. If there was not enough, she did not announce it. She changed the week. The meals became simpler. The butcher got a smaller order. The biscuits did not come home this time. Potatoes appeared more often. One bill was quietly held back until Friday. A small note might be tucked away in a tin, behind a clock, or inside the back of a drawer, just in case the week turned nasty. The children did not know. Dad often did not know either. But Mum knew. That wage packet was not just money. It was the whole house folded inside one brown envelope. And then there was the purse. A 1970s Mum's purse was not just a purse, it was the control room of the house. Inside it you might find coins, folded notes, Green Shield stamps, co-op stamps, old bus tickets, receipts, a shopping list written on the back of an envelope, and one emergency note kept in a place nobody else would think to look. Children knew not to touch it. You did not open Mum's purse. You did not borrow from it. You did not go looking for tenpence without asking, because that purse knew things the rest of the house did not. It knew whether there would be sausages or mince. It knew whether the electric meter could be fed again. It knew whether new school shoes were possible this week, or whether the old ones had to last a little longer, with polish, newspaper inside the sole, and hope. Mum could pick up that purse and know the state of the house by the weight of it. Nobody taught children this. They simply learned. You did not leave the house looking scruffy. Your mum could be tired, late, worried, and halfway through a dozen jobs, but no child of hers was going out with dirty knees, wild hair, or a collar sitting wrong. Hair was brushed hard enough to make your eyes water. Shoes were polished. Faces were wiped with a damp flannel, or worse, with spit on a hanky. If your jumper had a hole, she saw it before the teacher did. If your socks were grey instead of white, she knew. If your tie was crooked, her hand was already coming towards your neck. It was pride. Back then, the way a child looked said something about the home they came from. No mum wanted the neighbours, the school, or the woman at the bus stop thinking she had let things slip. So you were sent out clean, even if the house behind you was chaos. Food did not go in the bin unless there was truly no saving it. Stale bread became toast, bread pudding, or something under the grill. Leftover roast became sandwiches, stew, or bubble and squeak. A chicken was not one meal. It was Sunday dinner, Monday leftovers, and stock if Mum had the time and patience. Cold potatoes waited in a bowl. Bacon fat was saved. The heel of a loaf was not thrown away just because nobody wanted it. And if a child pushed a plate away and said they did not like it, Mum had a look that ended the conversation. You ate what was put in front of you. Children saw dinner. Mum saw the cost of it. Bad news came through the door, and the kettle went on. A neighbour knocked, looking upset, and the kettle went on. Dad came home quiet, and the kettle went on. A child cried at the table, and the kettle went on. Tea was how British mums slowed the world down. She did not always ask straight away. She put the cup down first. Then maybe she asked what had happened. Or maybe she said nothing at all, because she knew there were moments when talking too soon only made things worse. The kettle could not fix the rent, the job, the argument, the school trouble, or the bad news. But it gave everyone a place to begin. If this is bringing back memories, there is another video on the channel that pairs well with this one. It is on screen now. At dinner, Mum knew every plate before it reached the table. She knew who wanted more gravy, who would moan about fat on the meat, who would try to hide peas under a potato, and who needed the smaller portion because they never finished what they were given. The plates went out in the same order every time. Children first, Dad next, visitors, if there were any, then Mum. And by the time she sat down, someone wanted salt, sauce, bread, tea, seconds, or a clean fork. Her dinner could sit there getting cold while everyone else ate hot. Nobody made a speech about it. Nobody called it sacrifice. That was just dinner. But if you look back now, you may remember it differently. Mum was always getting up. Sunday dinner had its own pressure. The smell of roasting meat filled the house. The windows steamed up. Potatoes were peeled early. Vegetables boiled too long if someone distracted her. Gravy had to be right. Yorkshire puddings had to rise. Every child knew the worst place to stand was in the kitchen doorway, asking if it was ready yet. Dad might have carved the meat at the table, like it was the grand moment of the day. But Mum had already done the hard part. She had bought it, stretched it, cooked it, timed it, and already knew what the leftovers would become on Monday. That was the trick. The more work she did, the more normal it looked. Washing was the same. A clean shirt on Monday morning looked simple when you were the one putting it on. But Mum had watched the sky all weekend. If the sun came out, the line filled fast. If rain came, the whole house turned into a drying room, shirts over chairs, socks near the fire, a clothes horse in the worst possible place, where everyone had to squeeze past it sideways. And if you knocked a clean shirt onto the floor, you knew. You knew from her face. That shirt was not just a shirt. It was Monday morning not falling apart. Now here is one every child remembers. The front room. Some houses had a room that felt less like a room and more like a warning. The better carpet was in there, the better chairs, the glass cabinet, the ornaments, the things you were told not to touch before you had even thought about touching them. You did not run in there. You did not eat in there. You did not put a glass down without a mat. That room was for visitors, Christmas, and people Mum wanted to impress. It was not really about being posh. It was proof that the family was doing all right, proof that there were standards, proof that even if money was tight, someone still cared how the house looked. If someone knocked at the door, the house changed in seconds. Cups disappeared, cushions were straightened, newspapers were folded, children were warned with one look. Then came the line. Excuse the mess. Said in a room that had just been cleaned like the Queen was coming round. Every mum said it. Everyone knew the room looked perfectly fine. But the outside world did not get to see everything. Not the unpaid bill. Not the argument from that morning. Not the child who had been crying 10 minutes before. Visitors got tea, biscuits, and a mum who looked like everything was under control. And because she looked calm, people believed it. Now here is where it gets harder. Dad could come home and say almost nothing. But Mum knew. She knew from the way he shut the door, the way he sat down, the way he opened the paper and did not turn the page. Maybe the overtime had stopped. Maybe something had gone wrong at work. Maybe he was just worn down and did not have the words for it. She did not always push him. Sometimes she just put the tea down, kept the children quieter, and let the room settle. That was another rule. Mum had to read what nobody said. You could try lying to your mum in the 1970s, but it was a dangerous game. She knew when you had not washed your hands. She knew when you had eaten something before dinner. She knew when you had been somewhere you were not meant to go. Worst of all, she asked questions she already knew the answers to. Where have you been? Who were you with? Why is your coat wet? By the time she asked, the case was usually closed. If you said you were too ill for school, Mum looked at you for a few seconds longer than was comfortable. That look decided everything. A cough did not always save you. A stomachache was investigated. A temperature was taken seriously. And if she said you would be all right, you usually were. Not because she knew everything, because she had seen enough to know the difference. New shoes were needed. School trousers were too short. A winter coat had stopped fitting. Someone needed PE kit. Someone needed a birthday present for a party they had only just mentioned. Mum's own coat did another year. Her shoes were polished again. Her hair appointment could wait. She did not say she was going without. She said she did not need anything. The family believed her because they wanted to. But she knew what that sentence meant. It could mean there was no money left. It could mean the children came first. It could mean she had stopped expecting anyone to ask twice. Birthdays, appointments, school forms, dentist visits, rent days, milk money, dinner money, swimming kit, library books, aunties who needed cards, all of it lived in her head. If she remembered it, nobody noticed. If she forgot one thing, everyone did. That was the strange part. The work only became visible when it failed. And here is the rule children rarely saw. Mum knew how close the week could get to the edge. She knew when the purse was too light. She knew when the cupboard looked full but was not really full. She knew when the rent book made her stomach tighten. But she did not frighten the house with it. She made the meals stretch. She cut her own portions smaller. She said she had already eaten. She smiled when someone asked if everything was all right. And because she said yes, everyone carried on. That is the part that stays with you when you are older. You remember the clean shirt. You remember the tea. You remember the dinner. You remember the house somehow working. But you do not always remember asking how she felt while she was making it work. A 1970s British mum could be tired, but not tired enough to stop. She could be worried, but not worried enough to scare the children. She could be angry, but not angry for long. She could cry, but usually not where people could see. The kitchen sink saw more than the family did. So did the washing line. So did the quiet few minutes after everyone else had gone to bed. Then morning came, and she was back at it. Breakfast, uniforms, kettle, shopping list, purse, school, dinner, washing, bills. Again and again. The wage packet, the purse, the tea, the rent book, the washing line, the Sunday dinner, the clean uniforms, the front room, the leftovers, the quiet worry. Every rule in this video was hers. She absorbed everything the house needed and carried it without putting it down. She kept the family going, not with speeches. Not because anyone gave her a medal for it. She just did it. If you grew up with a mum like that, you may not have understood it then. Most children did not. You thought tea appeared, dinner appeared, clean clothes appeared. The house somehow worked. Years later, you look back and realize none of it happened by accident. She knew. She always knew. If this brought back one clear memory of your mum, your nan, your wife or yourself, leave that memory in the comments. And if you want to stay in this world a little longer, the video about the unspoken rules British dads lived by is on screen now.